Hi, welcome. We're going to talk about brand valuation. That is determining the economic value of a brand. We know that they're, generally valuable or invaluable or not valuable at all. But as often the case, there are a number of models used, and we will look at three commonly used methods to accomplish this task. So let's begin our little message here. Here are three of them that we rely on a lot to determine the brand value: Interbrand, Brand Z, and Brand Finance. Three separate kinds of institutions that work at this. I want to point out something here. Between Interbrand and Brand Z, same year, we see some things like this. Apple dropping to 2 and Google going to 1 on one versus the other. And then look at Google dropping to 3 and Apple actually staying the same at 2. So from the perspective of let's say pure rank, there's always going to be variations because the models are all different. As you can tell below, the descriptions are quite different for each one of those. And then think about this. Amazon actually moves from 5 to 4 all the way to number 1 in the brand finance. And if you look at the sections below, you'll see what each one of those indexes is built on. And that'll give you a little bit of study time to figure out exactly what each brand valuation model says and how it says it. So I'll point out one more thing to you here, that when we look at the total value and look at Apple under Brand Z, it's significantly greater. And then under Brand Finance, it's significantly less. So there are differences, again, because these are different or methods of evaluating brands. And that's what we have to think about here. So finally, this is the growth I was talking about. Amazon, 29% in Interbrand. But when you move over to Brand Finance, it's 42%. Not too different. A little bit, variation. Statistically the same, I guess. But if you look at Apple, at 3% growth on Interbrand. And if you look at Apple over on the Brand Finance, it's 37%. So if you look at the criteria for Interbrand, financial performance, role, brand index, and brand loyalty strength versus Brand Finance, which is the enterprise value and the brand contribution, then we see maybe there's a reason why those things would vary so widely. So the real measure sometimes is just in common sense, I guess. But we rely on these particular valuation models because they point out certain things. For example, Interbrand relies on purchase decision-making power. That's something tough to measure, but they have a means to doing that. Brand Z talks about the predicted future earnings. In other words, where is this brand headed? And in Brand Finance, we'll talk about all the multiple branded businesses, not just the key Coca-Cola brand, for example, but consider all the other branded businesses. And then finally, this one's kind of interesting over here on Interbrand. Look at, they actually break it down to 10 significant kinds of statements in which they evaluate or determine how well a brand does on those 10 particular measures. That's very helpful sometimes to understand where your brand stands. Now, the real measure sometimes is an acid test, I guess. So would you pay more for Pringles or Ruffles? And you have to really think about this at a level of price per ounce or something like that. And each one of these brands will probably generate a little bit different value, economic value. Another key measure is really think about what you're really trying to do with the brand, and that is the equity among target customers. If you think about Jack Link's, maybe not a particularly well-known brand, but to outdoorsmen and to truck drivers, an audience, two audiences they have been wooing for 15 years, this brand has some staying power. Look at this.
Jack Link's presents Running with Sasquatch. Science says there are two ways to live a life. Embrace your wild side, or embrace your "these stretchy pants make me look sporty" side. You eat the protein of Jack Link's steaks made with 100% beef, or you become the protein. Because in life, you either run with Sasquatch or you run from Sasquatch.